Yes!
Alright guys, so once again I'm back in the garage. I'm back in the garage this time because my brake cable snapped. Now for the eagle-eyes amongst you, you will notice that I have been running the gyro setup that I'm going to be installing today for a little while. So I'm kind of filming this preemptive of the fact that the weather's pretty crap, and I know that in a few weeks time I'm going to end up having no footage, and at least I've got a video to use. So sorry for sort of filming stuff and posting it late, but anyway, cable snapped. So I've been down to SCUK Co. Rotex sadly closed, so down to SCUK. I know Cara and that down there, so thanks to these guys for hooking me up with some parts at discount prices. Like, much love for that. I've got myself a vocal gyro kit in orange, not my first choice, but it's what they had in stock, and I really wanted to get this gyro set up because I do not like riding without brakes. The detangler that comes in these kits is pretty bad, so I've gone and got myself a snafu one, also in orange, so I guess that when I get around to tighten my bike up, it's going to have to incorporate some sort of orange, so that decision's been made for me. As is always the case with me though, I've lost something that I need, and I've hunted, and I've seen it in the last couple of days. I don't know where it is. It's going to turn up basically probably as soon as I finish filming this, but I've lost the little U that runs around to the brake itself, so I'm going to be doing the setup without that. It's not going to affect the setup of the gyro, it's not going to affect the how-to at all. It just means that I'm not going to be able to do the final tweaks of actually setting this up. So I don't know, I'll find it, you know, if I find it before this video goes out, which is more likely than not, or if I get a new one, maybe I'll just add a little bit on, but ultimately you're not going to miss that bit. So without further ado, I'm going to get on with this install. Alright, so what you're going to need to do this install is, in my instance anyway, a 6mm Allen key belt. That is to remove the stem and the top nut. I'm also going to need two 10mm. I've got a ratchet spanner and obviously a socket bit for the socket I'm going to be using. You're obviously going to need a brake system. I've got I think it's a Diatec Magic setup. It's just a U-brake. I've got some clear plastic pads. It's all the same setup I was using before, and to be honest with you, I mean, it worked awesome, so I'm not going to be changing any of that stuff. And I've got my Dirty Harry lever, so I'll check in with you in a second once I've got the appropriate tools in my hand, and we'll start doing this. Okay, so I've got myself some gloves on. A bit of a reoccurring thing with me, I like to wear gloves. I've got a newborn baby, and at the end of the day, I don't want like bits of dirt all stuck in my skin and everything. It just isn't good, and it makes you look bad. I've got a professional job during the week, so I need to keep myself looking relatively clean and tidy. But to be honest with you, this isn't a particularly dirty job, so long as your bike is relatively clean, that is, it's not messy, so you're going to be fine doing it. I know where my lever needs to be because I've got some marks on my bars from where I took it off the other day. So I'm just going to put these little shims on, get my lever in place. Somewhere about here. That looks good to me, although it always ends up being a little bit further pointing downwards than you think, because obviously when you get over the bike, it's amazing how much like you actually lean over the bars. And for this I actually needed a 5mm Allen key, which wasn't in the tools list, but other than that, that's all you're going to need. So I'll probably just say like an Allen key set. Once this is on anyway, I mean, it's easy enough to just move the lever around once you've practiced it, but probably the best thing I can say is just like stand up and have your arms sort of quite vertical and check how your lever goes. Like, as I say, it's quite close for me. I don't know how well you can see that from that angle, but that's going to be perfect as far as I'm concerned. So I'm just going to go ahead and torque that up a little bit. I probably wouldn't overly do it because you're going to end up probably moving it or something, but at least for now, let's just get it on there and not slipping around. I probably jolted the camera a whole load whilst I was doing that, so I'm sorry for that jerky footage right there. Right, up next I need to take the stem off, so I'm going to get this camera off and I'll be back in a second. Okay, so I pre-loosen these, but you know, they shouldn't be end of the worldly tight anyway. Undo your top bolt, because that's going to need to come off. Normally it's like a 6mm. Some of them are actually just like bolts themselves. Some of them are like 1/4 inch or 3/8 drive ratchet like blocks, so you just put your ratchet straight on it. Whatever you've got is what you're going to need, but in my instance it was just a 6mm for the bolts on the stem and the bolts on the top tube, bolt, nut, whatever it is, top nut. So many different names for bike parts, everybody calls them different things. Okay, so this is me undone. You don't need to take these bolts all the way out because they just sort of pinch this bit in and keep it tight, and then you're literally just going to want to kind of get a foot on either side of your wheel like so, give it a jiggle and a pull and hope that it comes up. So I'll check in with you when I've got this off. Alright, so this is probably going to be a bit hard to film, but basically I've taken my snafu detangler out of its packet. I've opened up my gyro kit and I've got just the top clamping plate. Now some of these are dead flat. Some of them have like a little curve in there and I don't know how well you're going to be able to see it. If it's a flat one, then obviously great, no dramas. If it's a curved one, you're probably going to want it running down. In fact, I say probably, like I think it's definitely, but I'm going to say probably just in case I'm wrong, but run it down because otherwise it's just going to be poking up into your stem. It's going to be no good for anything. You may need to remove spacers if you haven't got a whole lot of room. Now, I was actually looking for a small spacer anyway to make my bar that fraction higher. This is actually just going to act as it, so that's saving me a job anyway. So this is just going to go straight on there. But first, grab your detangler. The bottom tabs, these ones here, well, I mean, to be fair, if you've got writing on it, it's pretty obvious anyway, but the bottom tabs are the weird little ones, and you want your kind of big ring sitting at the top. That's just going to roll straight over there. And then this one, as I say, is just going to float over here. Grab your bar setup and stem and everything and get it back on there. I don't know how well I'm going to be able to do this with a camera in hand, so bear with the dodgy camera angles for a second. Obviously it never wants to go on. There we go, we're getting there, it's going down slowly but surely. Now, I don't know how good of an idea this is, but what I normally do just to get it all the way down and push everything up tight, put my top nut in. I mean, it's not a star nut. If you've got a star nut one, it might be a bit of a risk because you might pull your star nut up. So yeah, I'm not getting bite on that at all, but I've still got a bit to push down there. So let's just get that down again. Ugh. Am I getting a bite now? Just about getting a bite, but there's still some more to go down. Jiggle, jiggle, jiggle. Cool, this camera's going to be shocking. Right, have I got bite? Yeah, I've got bite. So I'll get this done up slightly, just to pull everything down and nice and let the thread do the pulling. So that's going to be all nice and good in there now. Quite stiff. And I'll do the old lining up thing. I don't know if I've got that camera at a good angle or not, but pull it around. That looks pretty straight to me. Now I'll give it another little cranky crank. Lovely jubbly. I'll get it stuck, obviously. Get the side bolts done up. Don't flick the switch as you're doing it, because then you're going to look like a tit. So we get these done up a bit. Try and do them up equally as well. You don't want to, like, I mean, it's not too bad with these. It's more so on the bolts for the, like, clamping at the front, these ones here. But just try and not to crank too much with one bolt. Spread it out a little bit on each one. Get it nice and even. So that's pretty even there. Let's get this one out, and again, swap hands into this side. Get it done up a bit more. Lovely, that's tight again. Back over to this side. Again, I'm probably going to have to swap hands just because I can't do it like that. So you see, like, I'm getting another couple of little cranky bit turns on those. And I bet you if I go back to this side, I can get another bit in on this one, which wasn't there a minute ago. Yeah, again, 1, 2, 3, lovely. You want to make sure this is tight because you don't want this turning whilst you're riding. That's like the worst thing that you could ever have. Just pure horrible. So make sure you've done it tight, but equally bear in mind that you're going to have to get this off at some point. And like, obviously I'm using a ratchet now, but at a skate park I'm just going to have like my little ankle set, so I'm going to struggle. I probably also should have said that you're going to want to make that pretty straight, which I haven't done, so I'm going to have to jiggle and frig about with that in a minute. to get it straight, but that's not the end of the world. That should turn, hopefully. So in fact, let me turn this nice and straight now, and then I'll check in back with you. Okay, so I'm hoping you can see now that this top tab is centered, whereas in the last clip it wasn't. And yeah, that's, you know, all of that done. This is all done back up, nice and straight. You know, if I wasn't going to put a brake on, I could probably get away with leaving it like that. This would probably rattle around and annoy the hell out of me, but it is what it is. Up next, you are going to need your gyro tabs. So again, I kind of lied about the tools required, because we're going to need some diddy little Allen keys for this. So just in here, I've got a little Allen key set. I'll let you know what size this is in a second when I figured it out. So on a lot of modern frames, you're going to have these two little holes on both sides. These are for your gyro tabs to go into. If you haven't got them, then you're going to have to use the big section of the detangler, which is just this here, and that will sit at the very bottom of your stack, and create sort of what will effectively be replaced by the tabs. Like I say, that's going to be for like quite old frames and things. A lot of the new ones are definitely going to have you know, these gyro tab things is what they're called, although allegedly gyro is an Odyssey name, and they're actually known as detanglers. I don't think I've ever heard anybody call it a detangler in all my life, so I'm going to continue referring to it as a gyro, but whatever. So on these tabs, you got one little noggin bit at the top and a hole on the bottom, so that is going to be the way it goes. One at the top goes in, and the one at the bottom is going to be threaded, hopefully. Let's see what Allen key size we're going to need. I think it's going to be a 2mm, so sorry for the crappy camera again, but it's very hard to film and do. Yeah, 2mm on there. Pop her in, screw them up like so. You probably don't need these overly tight, and it's quite a small Allen key, and you're maybe going to have to undo these again, so I'd make sure they're pretty tight, but don't overdo it. And then you're just going to repeat on the same again on the other side, so I'll check in with you when I got that done. Alright, so I've put the other tab on, and that's all cool. Up next, you're going to need the upper section of your brake cable. This should be pretty easy to fit if you've ever fitted a brake before. It kind of makes sense what's going on. What you need to do is make sure that your lever, I'll put this up here because it's hard to film and do these things. So on your lever you have these little slits, and you also have one on this adjustment tab here, so you need to make sure they're lined up, and then you also need to line that up with the slot that's at the bottom there. I don't know how well you can see that, I'm hoping you can see it okay. Next up, get the end with the big barrel in, slip it in the back and pull it through this. Again, mega hard to do this with it all lined up like that, so I might have to actually adjust my cable in a little bit. How ruddy annoying. Let me do that quickly and I'll be back with you. Alright, so apologies for that, I just had to like wind the adjuster screw in that I said there just to let me get it in. Anyway, so back on with the subject in hand. Like I said, barrel in, line your bits up, slide the cable in, it will sit in there nicely. Pull it through your bars like so, and get it screwed into these little tabby bits here. You're going to want to make sure that these little adjusters are wound all the way down, so I'm just going to do this side so you can see. Get it in there, get it bit, and screw in. It will go. It's sometimes just a bit of a pain to get them threaded when they're first new, because they've been painted, the paint kind of needs to score off on the threads. That's just, you know, it is what it is. It will help it to stay there in place, I guess. And then yeah, screw it all the way down. I'm going to do the same on the other side, and I'll check back in with you. Okay, so I've got the other side screwed in, and like you see, it's all the way down here and all the way down here. Next up, you are going to want to just put these tabs into the gyro or detangler. One side in there, and I don't know how well you're going to be able to see that, but there is a little slot there, and it does just sit in nicely once it's in. One side in there, lovely jubbly. That will be holding it up nice. Next thing you're going to need is the bottom cable, so let me scoot over and grab that. And once again, it's the same, you know, it comes with these little adapters on them. just make sure they're wound all the way in and all the way in, and get them screwed into the gyro tabs or the bottom plate of your bracket based on which one you're going to be using. I'm sure you don't need to see me screw these in again, so I'm going to check in with you once I've got them screwed in and I'll show you the next steps. Alright, so I got the little suckers screwed in, exactly the same as the other ones, just make sure they're screwed all the way up to begin with. And then you're going to need to pop the little tabs in on both sides of the gyro. Pop in and pop in, lovely. Give the cable down here a bit of a tug because, well, that will happen. That's helpful. Okay, so give it a bit of a tug anyway, but hold the cable in place, so kind of hold it there and pull this, just to make sure that these are pulled down nice and taut and you're kind of floating in the middle. I've got a little like Velcro cable tidy type thing there, but you can use a shoelace, like, I don't know, in fact, you know what, like off of the old break in my pocket, a shoelace I used to use, but I've got one of those now, so I'm just going to be using that. And then yeah, you got this little section here. Normally these come like way longer, but I think I've been really lucky. I've been provided with quite a short one in this kit. Other kits will vary. That's looking, do you know what, it might be slightly too long still, but that's okay because it just means I can let this sit a little bit higher up here, which is no bad thing. Slide your sleeve down over it if it wasn't already attached. I think mine literally fell off as I was getting it out of the packaging, and that's going to go in there, and then obviously that's going to go in here, so make sure that that one's wound all the way in as well. You want like these, you kind of want them wound out a little bit, so I'd normally wind this one out a little bit and let this be my last bit of adjustment here. You might need to slacken it off a little bit. I know it's all very well and good saying, well actually I'm only ever going to want to tighten it up, but you might have set the brakes up and find actually it's rubbing a fraction, and rather than have to undo the bolts again, you can just literally say, oh well, that fixes it, lovely. So yeah, I'm going to set about pulling this forwards a little bit quickly. Not going to be easy one-handed. In fact, you know what, I'm not going to do that one-handed. I'm going to check in with you once I've moved that back up a little bit, so bear with me a second. Okay, so I've made that adjustment. I've got this cable in here and I've used the built-in runner, got it run through, cable will pull through there, and I've just tapped this up here. It gives it a nicer loop around here actually, which I think is going to be better set up for it, so I'm not sniffing about that at all. This was actually a good length, I think. It's probably done me a favour by being that long. I might have cut it a little bit to pull these back a little bit more, but like I said, I think this nicer curve is probably going to do it the world of good and make it run that bit smoother, so I'm happy with that and I'm just going to leave it be. Up next you're going to need to snip this off to put your little DUV whatever shape type, whatever you want to call it, connector on. You need to bear in mind that that is going to pull forwards, but that also if you slacken off it's going to go in, so you're going to want it sort of here, and you're going to want a bit of slack cable coming through. So what I would normally do is cut my cable so that it's the length up to the frame. You can always snip a bit more off in the future, and there are special cutters to do this, but I don't have them, so I'm just using a straight up pair of cable cutters, not even a new pair, a little bit rusty, roughly in line, and hopefully in one go it's going to go. Obviously not. Now that's what you don't want to happen. I don't know if you can see that the cable started fraying a little bit, so I'll balance you on my leg and really get in there and get this bad boy cut. I'm hoping it's just going to cut nicely. There we go, lovely job, and actually I've not frayed the end up too badly. Now you can again get a nipple to put on the end of this, and I can use Harriet's lovely new BMX as a demo for this. These little nipples just clamp on. Again, they're going to be a couple of pence from your bike shop. Sadly, I'm a wally, I didn't think about it, and so I haven't got any, and unless there's some in this kit, which is now empty by a sticker, so no there isn't, I don't have one. I'm going to just grab one when I next go by a bike shop. It's not going to affect the install right now, and as long as I get on it sooner rather than later, the cable isn't going to fray, so it's fine. Next up, I'm sure you've fitted these before, but there is a little hole in here. You need to just get your cable in it, and I'm sorry if you can't see anything on that camera angle for now. Oh, I dropped everything. It's so hard to film and do these things, like ridiculously hard. Again, let me try and balance you on my legs here. I'm hoping that you've got a half decent angle to see. Let's get this in there. You might have to kind of just twist it a little bit in the direction that the cable goes, where you've cut it. Right, here we go. There was a washer that I also dropped just then, so let's scour the floor for washers. There she is. Washer on, like so. back on the legs, hopefully you can see. Get your D shape, U shape, V shape, whatever shape you want to call it, bit. Another washer. Let's get it up the way it was. That's nice. And then the bolt, and just get yourself, start doing that up so that it stays in there a bit nice, and then we'll worry about making sure it's straight and at the right sort of distance afterwards. So there, that's that. And obviously next up you'd use your 10mm and your ratchet and you'd do your things and go crazy tightening it up, but actually I can't do that because I lost that piece. You kind of need to know roughly how far this goes, so I'm going to leave mine for now in this setup until I can get that bit on there. But that is your basics of it. Obviously you're going to have a certain amount of adjustment to do, so you know, have a play, see what room you've got. You don't want this to touch the top, you also don't want it to hit the bottom. You need to kind of adjust a bit on both, a bit on both, some up here, some down there, until you get it nicely set up. But as I say, if I can find that little U-shaped piece of metal that I've seen 100 times over the last couple of days, I'll come back out and I'll get that filmed. If not, then I'm sorry guys, obviously I had to do it at a skate park or something when I got there from the shop, or I don't know, I've pilfered it from someone else and I just didn't have the facilities with me to film it. But other than that, that's how you install a gyro. Not how you set one up, sadly, but it is what it is. Like I say, sneak peek of Harriet's bike. I know I posted it up on Instagram the other day, but I got her a blank digit for her birthday, 12-inch BMX. She seemed to really enjoy it, but sadly doesn't have the control, so stabilizers are ordered. Not really surprising, you know, she's literally turning 3 years old. I know she's got a bike at home, but I don't think she rides it that much, but I really want to get her into it, so I've got her a BMX. I know she's fascinated by when I ride my BMXs, so hopefully I'll get a little video of her in a skate park at some point in the summer, once I've got her kitted up and a bit more comfortable and can take the stabilizers back off. And then because I think this one's going to be quite short, I'm going to give you the outro now and say thanks for watching, like, subscribe, share, all that kind of stuff. Here's a clip that I filmed probably 2 or 3 months ago, but I didn't really have any intro, outros or anything like that, so it's kind of just random clips I have on my computer of when we rode Reading Uni. I'll leave you with a couple of clips now, and once again, thanks for watching. Yo, get it cleaner. Yo. Yo.